Hello, ladies. I hope you're all doing well. I'm very honored that you chose to listen while you enjoy your home today. And we always start out with appearance, and so if you're not ready, then I would suggest you get dressed up as best you can for this most wonderful and appointed job that God has provided for you. And before you go, I'd like to share my teacup with you. Today I'm sharing the Corel Livingware, used to be called Corningware, cups, and I believe they're made out of some kind of ceramic that just almost is unbreakable. We've really enjoyed these, and we call them church cups because they're very easy to stack, and we've collected quite a few from the Goodwill or from, used to be able to get them commercially, and so I collected quite a few, and if we get an overflow of company, we get these out, and they really, tea tastes good in them, coffee tastes good in them, punch, and they're just beautiful on a colored tablecloth. And today you'll probably notice I've changed one of the guest rooms a little bit. We had a heat wave, 115 degrees Fahrenheit, probably a little bit more, and I decided that the colors were too hot for me, so I changed it all to this cooling white, and I believe it helps. And also, I would like to talk to you a little bit about your health. So if you would like to get started on your work and just tune in while you work, maybe you can get a few things done. First of all, I'm Mrs. Sherman, and I have a post on which I'm placing this video. If you'd like to go over there and watch it, it will be preferable to watching it on YouTube. And I don't allow comments here on the channel, but you can leave a comment over there on the post, and I'll provide a link below. Also, I would like to welcome you if you're new here, and I want to mention a few things about new people here. I've got to look at my stats for the first time in years and discovered that I am getting a few visits from some interesting, what I think are interesting places that I have read about and studied about, and I'd like to welcome you if you are new here, and I hope that you get something valuable out of this. Personally, I do not recommend that you copy me or that you do anything that I do, but to just take the principles and the ideas and adapt them into your life if they suit you. These are just based on my opinion and my experience. And if someone gets too contentious about it, just write it off as the rantings of an old woman and use it as entertainment. So today I'd like to encourage you to, if you're not ready, to go and get yourself presentable and dressed, because this if you're a homemaker, this is so essential. You can get up and walk around in your slippers and your pajamas all day, but it will never give you the spiritual satisfaction that it will when you dress up for it as though it were an important job, and a job that you are honoring God with. And you might have a family that's a little bit contentious or troubled, but if you will keep your home in order, it's very helpful, I think, and it calms some of these people down. I remember some of the old stories that we've read about women who've been upset about something, and someone would try to calm her down and say, I think if you'll just settle down and have a cup of tea or go and wash your dishes, you'll feel better. And sometimes, you listen to the world's problems, which I don't recommend, because I told you when I first began these videos about a year and a half or 2 years ago that the world isn't going to settle down, and it's just going to have problems constantly. And when they get finished terrorizing you in one respect, and they see that you've settled down, then the media will figure out something else to keep you hyped up. And as they say, fear sells. And they get more attention from the more drama that they can produce, and they are not going to let us go. And so I remember someone years ago had a blog, and she was overseas in some church capacity, and she had taken a picture of a couple of women having tea outside, and there were bombs going off in the background, and apparently they had been around this sort of thing so much that was a constant war zone where they lived, and so these women had just decided to go out and have tea anyway outside. And So this is a mentality that we have to have, that our homes, we're just going to go and have things as normal. One of the things that I am so grateful for is that Mr. S kept the church open here, and no one wore the bandana, and no one got sick, and we didn't social distance. We couldn't afford to social distance because we had to pay the electric and the heat and the water and everything in the larger area of the building. So we decided to move to a smaller room, and because we couldn't afford all that expense, and no one got sick, and no one got in trouble, and I'm very grateful that he kept it so that things were normal. At least church was normal for people. We kept it normal, that they didn't feel the impact there, and that his sermons were always about your personal salvation and about the gospel, and he kept the politics out of it completely. So when you went there, you could depend on being encouraged. And although it was mentioned, the war was mentioned some of the time, it doesn't matter whether we're at war or peace. We have to have a good conscience towards God in everything. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, and don't argue so much. And so I am grateful that, and then I kept my home normal. I didn't turn anyone away, and I didn't say I'm not seeing anyone. People started to visit a lot, and we had the relatives over often, and we just kept life as normal. And in fact, I think there was nary a conversation about the war. No one came and talked about the situation at all. They came to get away from it, and we talked about everything else. And I started my Thrive classes for my descendants on Zoom, and encouraged them to learn something new every day and then to teach it to me. And it's such a pleasure and such a great stimulant for my mind, especially as I become more elderly, to hear them tell me things. And we recently finished a 2-week session at the lake house. And so our home was turned into the lake house vacation spot. It wasn't a resort. It's just kind of a rough hewn lake house like you would go to, that was like a rustic cabin. And everyone took care of themselves as best they could. And we jumped in the lake, which is a big stock tank that we have. And so after this, now I'm having a short break. But now I am getting ready for another visit in which they are going to attend a butler school. And I have a book on butlering, and a lot of people think of butlers as people that serve food, but their responsibility was vastly beyond that. They took care of the luggage, they took care of clothing, they took care of the house in many ways. And so every person that attends this, even the children, are going to learn from the butler school. And they can, if they do well with their own belongings and their own rooms in which they are staying, they will be able to advance to head butler. And I'm going to be the head butler first, and then I will hand it over to the one that is most successful. And it will be everything, and it will be paying attention to the tiniest details of neatness, of cleanliness, of tidiness. You're doing your laundry, keeping up with everything, seeing that things are picked up, even if they're not yours. If you see it, be responsible, like a butler would. And we'll see if we can make it easier on the guests to leave, because sometimes, people get ready to leave and they have to go hunt everything down. Let's get everything that we brought and take it out, and everything that we have to take with us. And we will keep track of this along the way so that they'll make an easier exit. It won't be as dramatic, and that they will constantly have in their minds the idea of being their own personal butler to themselves. So that's my goal this next time, and we are really looking forward to that one. I also have another one planned where we're going to have our own Bible camp, just our family, just the descendants will come in, wake up in the morning as though we were in at a camp, and do our breakfast and our singing, and maybe a few Bible lessons for the little ones, and then we'll go jump in the lake like we used to at Bible camp. And so I would like to encourage you now, if you are not dressed, to please go and get dressed unless you're not feeling very well. But I remember one time I was expecting my first child, and I just felt awful. I was just so sick, and my grandmother said to me, I think if you took a shower and got dressed, you'd feel a little better. And it's true. So I'll just apply that to everything. And even if you just had a baby 50 years ago, you can do that. So today I'd also like to talk about the actual homemaking. I am always looking for a way that's more efficient for myself, and want to share some of these things with you. And some of them are very simple, and that is to use less items in the kitchen. Use them over again. Wash a mixing spoon and use it again. Or if you're making a pie crust, use the same bowl that the crust was made to make the filling in, because it doesn't really matter if the ingredients are a little blended. And I just think of all kinds of little techniques where I don't end up with a big pile of stuff in the kitchen. And also, one pan cooking is a great big skillet is very handy. And just clean as you go. Don't wait for the cleanup time, because you'll be exhausted by then, but just to clean as you go. I watched women that I have known over the years, and I sat in their kitchens, and as they were sifting flour, they were also wiping up the mess as they went, and they rarely dropped things on the floor. They just were very conscientious about the extra work that they were creating for themselves. And I also think it's very unfair, whether you're a father that's into carpentry or tools, or a mother who is busy in the kitchen, it's unfair to make the kids clean it up. They don't like, I don't think that I ever liked cleaning up after someone else. And so I think that it's really important to develop good habits of cleaning up after yourself, because that's a better way to teach children, so that they will see, they're influenced by what they see, and their values are formed by that. There are also some other things that I've really enjoyed doing. I want to share some of them with you. I've talked about one of these before, and that is after I have had company or come back from somewhere, or maybe recovering from feeling a little ill, I'll notice that the house needs to be cleaned, and the floors need to be swept, and things just need to be tidied up, and the pillows need to be poofed and all that. And I figure, since I'm going to bother to clean it up, I'm going to rearrange it a little bit, or just refurnish it. And so I have done that, and you don't have to spend any money. You just need to use your knowledge and your abilities to make it look better. And you don't have to depend on pictures and magazines. You don't have to go around to stores. Just fix it the way I always look at the creation. God said it is good. After he had done something, he'd stand back and say, it is good. Can you look back at something and say, oh, I like that. That's pretty good. Or can you look at it critically and say, that little corner over there, that doesn't do anything for me. I'm just going to change it around a little bit and see what you can do. I learned what I do just by myself, by experimenting and by experience in my own home. I never could get anything from a store or a magazine that really worked for me in my home, because there's a feeling that isn't in those pictures. And sometimes you'll see a picture of a room arrangement and you want to do it, and it doesn't work for you. It doesn't work in your house because your lighting is a little different coming from whichever window you're in. And they use cameras, and they enhance everything in such a different way. And it might look good and wonderful in the picture, but when you try to do it in your house, it doesn't work for you. So do whatever works for you, and it will just take a while. And stand back and look at it and say it is good if you like it. We had such a wonderful time when one of my families came over, And we went through some old magazines because I wanted to cut down on some of my accumulation as I get older. I need to do that. I can't keep everything, and I wanted them to take some of the things that they grew up with. And one of them was Country Woman. And this came about in our lives because we had moved to a ranch in Texas, and one of my husband's aunts had taken an interest in my daughter, and she was about, oh goodness, I'm thinking she was 9, or no, she must have been more like 12 or 13, and she subscribed to Country Woman for her. And although we liked Victoria magazine, it didn't it wasn't something that we were capable of achieving. They used a lot of antiques and things that we didn't have, and their photographs were not as easy to imitate for us, although we enjoyed the magazine because it was about the home, and it was about feminine things. But Country Woman was something we actually did. We used all the recipes in it, and we did the crafts. This one is from March and April 1992. And I have to tell you that we did a little research on what happened to Country Woman, because it was sold or something. The owner was very successful, and he was really good about getting people to send in their crafts and their recipes and their photographs, and they had a series of View from My Kitchen Window, and was something that I had emphasized even when I was much younger, how important that kitchen window was, because you'd be standing there doing a lot of dishes and baking and other things, food preparation, and you would need to have a window. And people knew this in the olden days, that you'd have to have a kitchen window with a view of some kind, even if it was just your little garden, because you'd be doing the most tedious jobs at that window or at the sink. And they had other things about country, the kind of country animals they had, and also the crafts, and we actually did them. And then they had many pictures of gardens and views from people's farms. And the lady that was the editor went around and learned how one farm made potato chips, and she was always on the go, and learned about the ranchers and the animals. And my daughter really took to this and made some of the crafts. This one is from and they also showed the quilts that these women had made. And whereas Victoria was more, I guess, high society for people like us, this one was things that we could actually do. And the farm ladies had homemade, furniture and homemade decor. And I always was so fascinated with this one because it was a little rabbit made out of muslin, and I put in another order for some of these, but my daughter made a lot of them. And they have home cooking, and this issue was about cherries, and they would be everything you could make with cherries, and also handy tips and tricks for country living. And so I'll read some of them to you. While you're doing your spring cleaning, don't forget farm vehicles, cab windows. Yeah, your tractor windows and all that. Every year about now, we wash ours thoroughly inside and then keep a magnetic broom with handle removed in each cab to simply brush off dust as it collects. Use a solution of baking soda and water on a dog that has gotten too friendly with a skunk. Allow it to dry on the dog. We used to use that word, too friendly, with a skunk. In fact, I think that phrase may have been used in the Love Comes Softly series when someone got sprayed by a skunk. It says, add a mothball to the dirt when planting a tree to keep insects away. Very interesting. And then they wanted you to send in a hint, and it would be published. And so we really enjoyed this. Now, This one featured landscaping for the farmhouse. So we got to looking around the web to find out what happened to this publication, because it got sold, and apparently the owner didn't think that his descendants would want it, or somehow was talked into selling it, and it was highly successful, and made quite a bit of money, and women everywhere were buying it, even not the country women. But as soon as it was sold, it just went downhill. It was made on cheap paper. This was all very high quality, and that's why they've lasted so long. This is not newsprint, and we didn't like it. I just quit buying it and canceled my subscription because it was so bad, and it was full of advertising. And this one had no advertising in it. If there was anything advertised, it was his own product. And so as soon as it got sold, it just went into very not as interesting. And so this has happened to several industries here in the area in which I live. There was a very nice motorhome caravan manufacturing place, and somehow the owners were persuaded to sell it, and I guess they didn't think that their descendants would be interested in running the business. And after that, it just went downhill. It just wasn't managed properly, and all the employees were sent home, and it was a family business too, because if you had worked there, then your son or daughter could be hired, could be first priority to be hired there, because it was all about family. Well, the people that bought it didn't care about family, and after that, a lot of people were unemployed, and the industry is no longer in business at all. So this was curious to us, and we looked up a lot of interesting things, not so nice things that happen to some of these successful businesses, and why they sell out and why they go out of business. I won't talk too much more about that, but there's a lot of dishonesty and stuff going on with that. So now that you have listened for a little while, I'll talk a little bit about dealing with people at home. Now, I know that not everybody is got the perfect home life, and that maybe you don't have people that are on board with you at home and maybe are very critical of you as a homemaker, or if you're homeschooling, that can be difficult too. But so I wanted to just tell you a couple of tactics that I have heard of and seen being used to put your mind at ease about some things that people do. And for instance, if you're really concerned about maybe cleanliness, personal cleanliness in your children or in the home, or maybe you're concerned about nutrition, you don't want them eating so much sugar and things that can ruin their health, and you make an attempt to do better, or you start teaching your children how to take care of themselves, how to be clean, how to clean up after themselves, and then maybe someone will start arguing about it. And I'm not saying that we're all perfect and that we have these perfect homes where this never happens. But I noticed something, and it's taken me a long time to learn because I'm a really slow learner. And that is, if you want, let's say you don't want to, I'm trying to think of I'm not using notes here, but I'm trying to think of an example where you really don't feel comfortable with some of the reading material that your children really want. When I was growing up, our father did not allow comic books. He did not allow them at all. And unfortunately, they would come around sometimes in these big boxes, because from homestead to homestead, we'd load up books and pass them on to the next homestead, and people would go through them and take what they wanted. And he never liked it when the comic books came on. He just did not like those comic books. I guess because he thought it was beneath us, and he wanted us to have good literature and not a lot of foolishness. So let's say that there's a reason that you want your children to avoid certain things that other people are reading, and they want to know why, and you start to explain. And instead of, you say, well, it isn't wholesome material, let's just put it that way. it doesn't have good values in it. And then you start discussing the values and things like that. And the child, let's say they're older children, will immediately say something like, well, what am I supposed to read? Or they can do this with anything, like maybe they get interested in an activity that you don't really think is really has good values or puts them in association with good people, and also maybe does not require really modest clothing or requires immodest clothing, and you start to bring these issues up and gently persuade, and they will say something like, well, what am I supposed to do? And what it is, it's a distracting question. And instead of saying, okay, let's discuss the values in these books. Okay, what is it particularly that's wrong? And biblically, how can you justify reading it? Or, like there'll be a series of books or a series of movies, and you really don't want your children interested in that because you think their minds could be put to better use, or you don't like the values in this series of movies. Maybe it has a lot of things in it that aren't real, or I can't even think of a series right now, but they will distract with a question or an accusation, and it's totally off the subject. They will not discuss the immodest clothing. They will not say, well, what is immodest about this? Or why would you be worried about me wearing this? Tell me exactly what's wrong with it. I want to know. And instead, they will say, well, what am I supposed to wear? And then you get you talking about something else. Or if they're trying to pursue an interest, and you know that that's probably not going to put them in a good association with other people that are stable and like-minded, and it's going to take them away from church, and it's going to take them away from the family values. They'll say, well, what am I supposed to do? Or what am I supposed to be? And that gets the parents talking about something else, and which is good, but the child can often, and the other person, or maybe there's someone else in your home, maybe there's someone else in your life that comes in and starts to attack your values, and they'll say, well, you just don't believe in anything, do you? And what it is a distraction from the issue. They seldom will discuss the issue. For example, you might be warning your daughter about makeup. That some makeup doesn't make you look healthy. It just makes you look kind of occultish, and it's not very attractive, but it also would attract the kind of people that are on the dark side. And so instead of addressing that issue, the daughter will say, well, you're just really out of it. And so then you get caught up in an argument about something else. And so here's what I've noticed is that people that are arguing with you about anything, doesn't have to be children at home. It can be anything that they argue with. You've got to watch them, that they stay on the subject. And one of the things you can do is say, we can't be doing this, or it's not allowed in our home, or this isn't of good values. This is not a good thing. And shorten the sentence until they understand. Just repeat it so that you don't get caught up in whether or not you're a good person, or they'll attack you. They'll tell you you're not a very good person, and then you'll try to say, well, what did I do wrong? And next thing you know, you're arguing about something else. And I hope I'm making that clear. But they did the same thing. There's nothing new under the sun, is there? They did the same thing to the Apostle Paul when he was preaching, and they spread rumors about him that he was upsetting the city, turning the city upside down. But no one said anything about the doctrine. No one even challenged him about the teaching and the gospel that he was preaching. No one questioned him about that. They just accused him of turning the city upside down. Well, this is what people are doing. And they accused Christ of the same thing. They didn't stay with the subject. They just attacked him for one thing or another, and it was always off the subject. Have you noticed this? So think about that a little bit. I bet you have run into an argument and not known how in the world you got there, and so now that I mention it, you might see that somewhere they got you off track of the subject that you were most concerned about. And it can be something that's just as good as can be, like I'm really concerned about the leak in my washer machine. Do you think we should get someone to fix it, or could you fix it, or something like that? You're asking someone to fix it, and they start to argue with you and get you away from, fixing something. I guess I have had enough experience in this that I didn't even think to analyze it, but smart people will just move on and continue with their goals and not stop and argue about every little thing. And if you'll notice with the arguing, it's never about the actual thing. And I think that with home life, if you want it to go smoothly, you have to limit the amount of arguing that goes on and not stop. Sometimes people try to waylay you and stop you and derail you in your interest in the home. Now, this could be someone that is not even in your home, but they want to waylay you. They want to get you caught up in an argument or upset you so that you become obsessed with a different subject, and then you can't move. You're immobilized. And so I think it's really important for homemakers to have a clear head and not get too caught up in, and I know that you have to guide your home. You have to guide and guard your home. You're responsible for teaching good values at home. This is something that people would like to take away from you. And even those inside your home, when they don't like these values that you are wanting to live, you don't want any obnoxious noise in your house, or you don't want certain types of music in your house played in your house within your hearing, or you would like to not have any literature around that is not pure and clean and good, and they will try to sabotage you in that. And you may not have experienced it, and good for you if you haven't. One of the things is that if you're trying to help your family and you want them to be healthy, and you want them to be clean, and you want them to be level-headed, and you want them to glorify God in what they do, we can't be their conscience and we can't be their soul, but we can show the example and we can produce the values for them to follow. But if they don't like it and they are tempted by something else that is worldly, they're going to find ways to sabotage you so that you will give up your values. And so I wanted to bring that out to you so that you wouldn't be distracted by it. Now today I also want to emphasize that it's really important for the homemaker to look on things that are lovely. And this is the one thing that helps, I think, in the home, is to use it as a beautiful backdrop for your life and an expression for yourself. Now, if you see behind me, I've changed everything around here, and most of the things that are on that bed over there are homemade. And so over the years, I've just collected some things that can be used. And so whatever you can do to make it your house a place that you like, that's pleasant enough to work in, to exercise in, to eat in, to visit in, to create in, make it that atmosphere that you like, and stay away from the institutional look if you possibly can, because out there in the world there is plenty of it. But your home is something that's unique, and you don't have to follow decorator styles or any trends. I always wondered why there wasn't a homestead trend, a homestead style, and there was another one I was thinking of the other day, wondering what happened to that. And so you have a chance to create your own wacky style if you want to. Now I'm going to homeschool you a little bit by telling you that the basics of homeschooling is that you learn on your own. And this is what we did with homeschooling, was to create in them a method of learning and a desire to learn so that you could work yourself out of a job, and that they would no longer be dependent on learning institutions or books to learn, or any kind of teaching, like they wouldn't think they had to take a course every time they wanted to learn something, because they could figure it out. So you can say to people that you are being homeschooled, and you can say, I'm homeschooling myself, I'm teaching myself. And you can learn from all your daily experience, and you can learn from your reading. And also just make sure that you're reading, when you're reading something, is to determine whether it's good values, whether it's really workable things that you are reading. We have had such a nice discussion with our grandchildren about ancient history, and I did put a video up there for a while for you to listen to. He wants to edit it a little bit, so because he made a mistake of one of the Roman emperors, and it was how many wars he'd fought, and he got the wrong number, so he wants to go back and change it. So I had to take it down. But if you can learn something and tell it back and tell it to someone else, and they seem interested, then it does have some value. So ladies, I hope that you have gotten quite a bit done. I've only spoken for half an hour here, but it's a very hot day here. I must get up, get something to drink, and get busy with some things around here. And so I hope you have a lovely day. I'll talk to you later. Please leave a comment if you can, and thank you all. Some of you who have been sending me some money through PayPal, on the left of my blog, you can see where you can send something, and it really helps. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.